It's 2009. I'm 12 now. But ever since I was 9 years old, my parents sent me to a 3-week summer camp. It might have been their way of getting rid of me while school was out, and maybe so I wouldn't stay at home playing video games, eating junk food, and complaining about being bored. Well, I'm glad they did, because I loved camp. It was about a 45-minute drive out to Oshawa where the reservation was. All the kids would meet at the same pickup spot every year, and a yellow school bus would drive us to the campsite. It was a cloudy but humid day. The bus smelled horrible as usual as we got on in single file. It really needed to be aired out. The driver was very thin with a thick black beard. He was wearing a plaid orange and black shirt with light-colored wash jeans that had holes in it, a black ball cap that read "My Bus, My Rules." He looked like he could be in his late 20s. He wasn't making eye contact or greeting anyone who entered the bus. His head was buried into his phone. I walked straight to the back of the bus. It was the spot where I normally met my camp buddies. It was nice to see them again. Martin, Stan, Bob, Tyler, we were all pretty close. We've always bunked in the same room. Most nights we would turn on our flashlights and tell each other scary stories. Sometimes even sneak out and play truth or dare. It was all Tyler's idea. He seemed to be the one who was fearless out of the group. We noticed that this year, though, Tyler didn't board the bus. Maybe he was running a bit late. Maybe he would just meet us at camp. Or maybe he just went on vacation with his family. Whatever the reason was, I suggested we ask the guidance counselors once we got to the campsite. When we got to Camp Lunar, we waited in the back until the front of the bus emptied before we decided to go out. I was sitting patiently swinging my legs until the back of my shoe hit something under the seat. It felt like metal. I told Martin to help me pull whatever it was out. It was a storage trunk. From it, there was a real putrid smell being emitted. That's what was probably causing the stench when we had got onto the bus. Bob said he was about to barf. We quickly pried the top open. Inside was pieces of body parts. A hand, arm, legs, blood everywhere. There were lots of car fresheners placed around the trunk to mask the smell, but I guess it didn't work. We screamed in horror. The unpleasant smell amplified through the whole bus. We ran off and alerted what we saw to the counselors. They contacted the police. Camp was postponed for now, until a later date was determined. Everyone's parents were called to pick up their kids. A few days passed, and back at home my mom got a call from Tyler's mom. I was eating dinner when my mom entered the kitchen with a grimaced look. Must have been terrible news. And boy, was it. She told me that the reason Tyler hadn't come to camp is he went to a nearby park 2 days prior to camp and never came home. They had police searching everywhere for him, but there was no luck. They examined the body my friends and I had found, and the DNA matched Tyler's. All the information fit in with the disappearance of him. The bus driver had been taken in and charged with the murder. I felt queasy after I heard what my mom said. How could someone be so cruel to a kid? I never understood that. This incident had turned me off of camping and class field trips for a very long time. Although I miss Tyler and our good times, I can never forget that the last time I ever saw him was parts of his body cut up into pieces. This happened 3 years ago in our townhouse in Pickering. It was 4 levels. The first floor had the entrance, the garage, and laundry room with a door that led to the unfinished basement. The second floor had the kitchen, living room, a full bathroom, and a glass door leading out to the terrace. The top floor had 4 bedrooms and another full bathroom. My mom, dad, brother, and myself lived there. It was a fairly good neighborhood, rarely any problems, with the occasional loud music from the neighbors at the end of the street. Both my parents worked, and my brother was in his last year of high school. I recently finished college and was working part-time at the nearest mall. It was an in-between job until I got something within my field of study, which was accounting. Most weeknights I would be alone as my parents worked as custodians for various corporate buildings. They usually got home at 1 a.m. My brother often hung out at his friends after school and sometimes slept over. I'd make sure the house was pretty clean as my parents worked long hours. It was the least I could do to help them. My brother, on the other hand, was a total slob. His room was always a pigsty, and he left empty packages of snacks everywhere and crumbs all over the floor. I was always yelling at him to clean up his mess, especially in the laundry room. I don't know what he was doing down there, but he always left wrappers scattered on the shelves and on the floor. There was literally a garbage bin a few steps away. He should learn to use it. To top it off, he left the door to the basement a crack open. I hated basements. I rarely went down there unless my friends or family were over and we were hosting parties. I pushed the basement door closed, and then I went upstairs. It was Friday evening, and my brother was going bowling with his best friend and then staying the night. My parents were working and wouldn't return until 2 a.m. I finished work at 9 p.m. and was on my way home when I called up my friend Brooke to see if she wanted to come over and hang out, just watch a scary movie and maybe crash for the night. She was cool with the idea. When I got home, I saw the laundry room light on. Great, I thought. My brother Tony must have stopped by the house before leaving to his friends. The dryer was open, where he probably grabbed his fresh PJs. He also had left the basement open, yet again. What the heck did he need to go down there for? I shut the door and turned off the laundry light, then went upstairs. The kitchen was a huge mess. I was pissed. There was spilled milk on the counter, dishes in the sink, granola bar wrappers on the floor, food stain drippings from the cabinet onto the tile. I immediately called my brother, and when he didn't pick up his phone, I left a very unkind voicemail. I cleaned up the kitchen and then went upstairs to shower. After I changed into something comfy, I heard the doorbell ring and went downstairs. It was Brooke. She was holding a bag of snacks. "You ready to get freaked out?" she said. I laughed and said, "Definitely." We were upstairs in my room when I saw the pile of clothes in the corner. I remembered there were no more baskets upstairs and I was planning on washing my clothes tomorrow. I told Brooke I'd be right back. I went downstairs to the first floor and saw that the laundry room light was on, and the basement door was open. I was pretty creeped out about that because I remember closing it and turning the light off. I quickly grabbed the basket and shut the basement door. I ran upstairs as fast as I could and shut my room door. I was shooken up, but maybe there was an explanation. I asked Brooke if she went to the laundry room at any point, although I already knew she hadn't been. She told me no. Maybe my brother was home, I thought, and he was playing a prank on me. I called him, and this time he actually answered. "Tony, are you home?" I said. "No," he replied. "We're at McDonald's right now grabbing some food." I asked him if he listened to my voicemail. He said yes, and that he didn't make the mess. He only came home to grab his clothes, and he left. I was angry that he was denying everything. There was no one else in the house. We always had the alarm on when no one would be home, and even when someone was home, we tried to turn it on as well, so no one could leave or enter the house without triggering the system. I built the courage, and Brooke and I went down to the laundry room together. The door was still closed, which was good. But we then heard sounds coming from the basement. It couldn't have been pipes or the house itself. We put our ears up against the door. That's when we heard footsteps coming up. Our eyes widened. Someone was in here. I unlocked the front door and we ran upstairs and locked my room door. We called the police. I told the dispatcher the story and let them know I had left the front door unlocked, just in case whatever was in our house was dangerous and on the other side of our door or in a place in the house that they could hurt us, that we were staying put in my room until they arrived. Shortly after, we heard sirens. I looked out my window, and it was the police. There were about 3 to 4 vehicles. The door opened, and I heard them proceeding downstairs to the basement. Brooke and myself took a deep breath, and we went down too. We saw it. It was a man in his 50s, short, average built. He was in tattered clothing. He had a crooked smile, and then he broke out into a lengthy, evil sort of laugh. The police told us to give them time to investigate, and we were advised to stay in a hotel for the next few days. My parents and brother were beyond shocked when they got the news. They couldn't even sleep for days while the investigation was going on. When the officers got back to us with their findings, My heartbeat was insane. There was a mix of panic, confusion, and tears. This man's name was Gomez Hernan. He was an escapee from a psychiatric ward in Toronto. They'd been looking for him for at least 3 months. He previously murdered a family of 8 when he snuck into their home and squatted for 5 months in a basement. 5 seemed to be his lucky number. The alarm sensors didn't go off in our house between each level because he had removed them and put them inside a cupboard in the basement. How could we have not paid enough attention to notice the sensors were missing? I couldn't believe it. Had I waited longer, my family and I would have died at the hands of an insane person. I was curious, though, how he got into the basement when there was no entry. My parents eventually put a lock on the basement door, and now we've put up our house for sale. There's just too many sleepless nights full of bad dreams. We can't stay here. My name is Tessa. I'm 15 years old, and I'm in the 10th grade. My parents said I can't get a retail job until I'm 16, but if I wanted to earn money to buy my own things, I could babysit some of the kids in my neighborhood. I thought it was a pretty good idea, and at church that Sunday, my parents asked the pastor if I could put up a flyer on the bulletin board for my babysitting services. He agreed. That same week, I was getting plenty of calls to babysit for a couple of hours. I had the entire week booked. 2 hours here, 3 hours there. My rate was $7 an hour, and I was scheduled to work for 3 families over 5 days, totaling 12 hours. After final calculations, I would make $84 cash, which might not be a lot for adults, but for me, that was a pretty good allowance. I made sure whenever I went to a house, I took my homework with me. I had to be responsible. I also helped the kids do their homework before serving the dinner that the parents had cooked, and then helped them wash up and get ready for bed. It had only been 3 days, but so far I didn't have any issues with the kids throwing tantrums. Thursday was my second to last babysit gig. I was definitely looking forward to spending some of my money at the mall on the weekend. I had babysat the Vances' 8-year-old daughter and 10-year-old son on Monday, so they sort of knew me. They welcomed me in and told me the regular stuff, to make sure the kids did their homework, ate their food, brushed their teeth. I told them not to worry and that I would take care of it all. Rex was a pretty behaved kid. He finished his assignment on poetry, which was writing a haiku, and then I helped him review the 10 words he'd be tested for spelling tomorrow at school. Delilah, though, she finished her silhouette art and then wanted to play. She asked me to braid her hair, so I did, and then she wanted to play a couple rounds of hide and seek. I said sure, but only if she ate her dinner of chicken, rice, and peas, and then brushed her teeth. She was so excited that I had said yes and immediately sat on the table waiting for me to warm up her food. After dinner, Rex went to change into his PJs and then brushed his teeth, then went to bed. I got Delilah changed and brushed. I told her only 2 rounds of hide and seek. I felt like that would be enough for her to use up all her energy and be nice and tired for bed. I decided to hide first. I went behind the couch and used a throw blanket to cover me. I could hear Delilah going into every room and carefully opening every door. She then got to the living room and couldn't find me. She literally walked past me and said, "I give up. Where are you, Tessa?" I jumped from behind the couch and went boo. She hysterically screamed. I told her it was her turn to hide and for me to seek. She smiled and said, "Okay," enthusiastically. I waited a couple of minutes. I went through each room, skipping Rex's because I knew he was asleep, or at least trying to. I walked into the Vance's office space, checked the closet, but no Delilah. I then could see a foot peeking through under the computer desk. I moved the chair and said, "Gotcha!" She screamed, and it was such a shrill. I said, "Okay, now that we're done, it's time for bed." Delilah stuck to her bargain and went into her room. I tucked her in, and then I walked back to the office. I had a history paper I needed to print out, but my printer at home was out of service. I could go to Staples tomorrow after school, but I had to babysit the Sutcliffe kids. I thought I would use the Vance's printer and then tell them later. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. After all, they were very kind. The computer was already logged in. I put in my USB. It popped up in the corner window. I took the mouse to click on it when I accidentally hit the desktop tool. bar and up popped an MP4 video. It was on pause, and the video was of me. I played a bit of it. The duration ran for 3 hours, exactly the time I had began the job. I was shocked. Why would they need to record a 14-year-old? I wouldn't steal a thing. If they didn't trust me, why hire me? There were many other clips in a folder. These people had little cameras set up throughout the entire house. I understood they wanted to protect their kids while away, or have proof in case something went awry. But that positive assumption quickly changed when I clicked to open my file in Microsoft Word, and a previously opened document popped up and asked to save. That document had timestamps of each of the actions I did. 8:30 p.m., Tessa takes a bag of chips and a can of Coke from the kitchen. 8:45, Tessa watching TV and talking on the phone. These notes went on until I had left at 9 p.m. on Monday. I'm sure right now they were probably watching me in the home office, live. I ended up removing my USB and not printing my paper. Instead, I went to the kitchen and cleaned up the dishes from dinner, and then tidied up the living room a bit. I was appalled that they kept such a close track of me, including what I ate. They actually were the ones who told me to help myself, to be comfortable, but now I was far from that. I wanted to go home. Around 9:15, I heard the front door open. I quickly gathered my things and made my way downstairs. I met the Vances at the door. Mr. Vance excused himself and went upstairs to check up on the kids. Mrs. Vance paid me the money and then offered to drive me home, but I politely declined. I lived about a 7-minute walk away and I would manage. Before I left, she asked if I was okay, and I told her of course. She asked me if I would come back next Wednesday, but I told her exams were around the corner and that this was just a temporary job, maybe another time. Truth be told, I would still consider babysitting other kids in the future, once I get over this incident. But what's for certain is, I'll take my own snacks and drinks, and I'll always keep it straight to business, no matter who they are and how kind they appear to be. My name is Jillian, but they call me Jill. I live in the township of Banff, located in Alberta. I'm 17 and in my last year of high school. Banff is such a beautiful place, right near the Rocky Mountains. Tourists are always visiting and taking pictures of the scenic nature. As much as I love where I live, I do want to travel and see the rest of the world. My parents don't know this yet, but I do plan on taking a year off post-secondary to take trips to different parts of the world. After all, I've been saving Christmas and birthday money for quite some time now. I really want to get a feel to see if traveling is indeed my passion. If so, then I may consider pursuing my dream and be trained to be a stewardess. They have such an exciting life, going from one part of the world to the next in a matter of hours. It's incredible. It was almost the end of the school year, and my friends and I were getting ready for prom. We decided to be each other's dates and rent a sleek black limo to pull up to the event. My girls Harper and Olivia wore strapless, above-the-knee dresses with high heels that would probably break your toes if stepped on. My dress was satin also, but with one strap to the side, and it was floor length. I really felt like a celebrity on the red carpet. The guys, Tim, Lucas, and Daniel, wore the exact same colored suits, black, with a white dress shirt underneath. The only difference was the ties. Tim had an emerald green color, Lucas a royal blue, and Daniel a crimson red. I don't know if they were trying to go as the Power Rangers, but that's what it reminded me of. It could possibly ring true. Guys are weird sometimes. Prom was pretty fun. There was good music, a baby blue sequins backdrop to take pictures, lots of finger foods. I spotted quite a few drunk kids from our class who tried to pull it off as they were okay. I'm sure the teachers could tell too, but they let it slide. My friends and I stood around discussing the graduation getaway. We'd been planning it for about 6 months now. Devonshire Beach was our choice. It was about a 6-hour drive from Banff. It was a bit more of a remote place. We thought it would be a great road trip. All of us had our licenses, so we would take turns at the wheel in case one wanted to take a nap or relax. After prom was graduation day, another celebratory milestone for most families. I never saw the big deal with the tears and the pats on the back. High school was just like elementary. We hadn't seen yet as adults what the world was really like out there. I guess I was more of a realist in that sense. After the ceremony, I went home and immediately started to pack for our trip. We were leaving the first thing in the morning, and I didn't want to forget a thing. I packed some sunscreen, a digital camera, swimsuits, and a couple of summer dresses, athletic wear because I loved a good morning run, lots of snacks and water, a pocket knife. I mean, the resort might be expensive with room service. Essential intimate and hygiene items were also a must. We were going away for 4 days, so I guess pack a little bit more. Anything could happen. We took Daniel's dad's Kia Sonata. The travel up north wasn't bad. We took turns driving, about an hour each. It was a beautiful clear day. The skies were bright blue, and the sun was just glowing, very picturesque. We finally reached the resort and went to check in. The beach houses along the water were breathtaking. Very modern, with a glass balcony and a patio. A pool. All the amenities were included, the concierge told us, except for the food. So it was kind of like a hotel, but much, much bigger. We got the place for a pretty good deal, $4.50 a night. The inside had chandeliers and stainless steel appliances, a fireplace, an Italian coffee machine with complimentary coffees. It was 5 bedrooms and 4 baths, 3,000 square feet. The setup felt like something you would see in a magazine spread for the wealthy people to splurge on. It was our first night, and Daniel thought it would be a good idea to celebrate with some barbecue and drinks. Because of our age, there was no alcohol in the fridge, but it didn't stop the guys from using fake IDs and buying some of their own. They went to the van to empty out the luggage, and even had a cooler that had all kinds of frozen meat like ground beef, chicken wings, jumbo Italian sausages. We were pretty hungry, so we prepped the barbecue stuff first with the marinades and then put in the fridge for tonight's feast. In the meantime, I made us some extra strong coffees, eggs, hash browns, bacon, and cut up a fruit salad. Harper set the table while Olivia was on the phone with her family, letting them know we had reached safely. Although there were 5 rooms, we only needed 2, one for the guys and one for us girls. Each room had 2 queen-size beds. 2 people would have to share one. I let everyone know food was ready and they came down to eat. We agreed to do whatever we wanted until dinner time, and then we would head out to the beach and tell some scary stories by the water. After lunch, Olivia volunteered to wash the dishes. I put on my swimsuit and went to sunbathe with a book. Just being outdoors, the fresh air and the sound of the lake felt amazing. I ended up dozing off. I was awakened by Tim, who told me it was 5 o'clock and he was getting the barbecue going for dinner. I went inside and took a shower and put on one of my summer dresses. I went downstairs and helped bring in the cooked food that Tim was grilling. Daniel and Lucas were on their 3rd bottle of Coronas. I think they were trying to outdrink each other, but they already were having a difficult time getting up from their seats to use the bathroom. I poured a glass of wine for myself, Harper, and Olivia. We raised a toast to graduation and more new adventures to come. I think after having quite a few drinks in our system, we were feeling pretty tipsy to clean up. Tim, who was busy grilling the whole time, barely drank, said he would clean up the rest. Lucas didn't even touch his food and knocked out immediately on the couch. Olivia started to feel some stomach pain. She said she had the chicken and it might have not been cooked through. She ran to the washroom to throw up. Harper said she was going to wait and see if Olivia feels better before heading out to the beach for the stories. She also wanted to take a quick shower as she went for a dip in the lake early this afternoon. That left Daniel and myself. He grabbed the open bottle of wine on the table, and then we walked to the part of the beach where there was a place to light a bonfire. It was a 2-minute walk from the house. Not too long after, Tim joins us. He brings some blankets with him and a bucket to put the fire out after the stories. I asked him where Olivia and Harper were. He said Olivia's stomach wasn't any better and Harper was bringing the ingredients to make s'mores. Lucas was still asleep on the couch and that we would wake him up after we got back to the house. So, I said, let's just tell some stories in the meantime. Who wants to go first? Daniel said he had the perfect one. He took a huge gulp from the wine bottle and offered Tim and I some. We told him no and that we were fine. He began. There is an urban legend that a lonely man who was born with a deformed face was always teased by kids growing up. In high school, no girl wanted to date him or go to prom with him. Then something happened to him, and he decided to get revenge on his bullies. One by one, when they least expected it, he would kill them in the most gruesome of ways. No one has ever seen him, but they say he has the scent for teenagers, and that he still seeks the thrill to kill. Tim and I laughed uncontrollably and said the chance of that happening today was highly unlikely, and the fact is that he would get caught and thrown in jail. Plus, the story was very similar to some slasher films from the 90s. Daniel agreed and said, yeah, the story was kinda lame, but before he could finish, he started to choke. Foam began spewing from his mouth. He fell on the sand. Tim rushed over and tried to help clear his airway. I kept saying, "Daniel, stay with us. Talk to me. Are you okay?" But then he just closed his eyes. Tim put his head close to his chest. "He's not breathing." I checked Daniel's pulse. There was none. He was gone. I started to cry. I told Tim we had to call the police and let our other friends know what was going on. Tim hugged to console me as we both cried with agony. We just lost a friend. I ran towards the house, not waiting for Tim as he put out the fire. The patio door was wide open when I got into the house. I went to the living room to wake up Lucas. I screamed at the sight I saw. There was blood everywhere. Lucas had a broken beer bottle stuck at the side of his neck. He was dead. I couldn't process what the hell was happening. I ran upstairs to the room where Olivia was sleeping. I turned on the light. There, with each limb tied up to the bed, was Olivia. Her mouth was bound. Her stomach was cut open. My pocket knife was lying next to her on the bed. I threw up on the floor. I was scared. "Harper! Harper!" I cried out. "Where are you?" I didn't hear her reply back. I checked every room. When I got to the furthest bathroom of the house, I opened the door. I nearly collapsed on the ground. Harper had been strangled to death with the shower hose. Her eyes were gouged out. "Oh my God," I screamed. I now began to realize that the urban legend Daniel told might ring some truth. There was a murderer out on the loose who took the lives of my friends. Tim and I had to escape. I heard a loud scream downstairs. It was Tim. He had found Daniel. I yelled Tim's name and ran downstairs. I saw him with his hands on his head. He was pacing around in disbelief, his eyes red from crying. We had to protect ourselves. I grabbed 2 kitchen knives and told him that the rest of our friends were also dead. He was bawling, saying, "Why is this happening to us?" I told him we aren't safe here. If there is a serial killer, he is someone inside or nearby. We might be next. I told him we needed to call the police. With shaking hands, I dialed 911. The police, fire truck, and ambulances showed up within minutes. As protocol, we were asked to answer questions. I've never been in the most hostile situation as this, nor did I wish anyone to go through that. We knew we were innocent, but the officers kept grilling us. After many hours, we were let go, but we knew eventually we would have to return. The hardest part was the multiple calls made to debrief the parents on what happened to their kids. I thought how all we wanted was a weekend to get away and enjoy it with each other, make memories. I was now having second thoughts of choosing a career that involved a lot of traveling. There were crazy people like this all over the world. I was better off being in a safe place, and that safe place was home. The drive back to Banff was mostly quiet with a lot of tears. Tim and I did multiple stopovers for coffee. We really didn't have an appetite to eat. Tim offered to drive the entire way. He told me out of the both of us he could hold his emotions a bit better and get us back safely. The bodies of our friends were in 4 separate vans. Midway through, it started to pour rain. I always felt like that was a sign from the angels, as if they were mourning the departed as they welcomed them into heaven. I did have quite the imagination. The funeral was the most difficult. All my teachers and many students from school were there. The caskets were closed, and the burials of each body took place one after the other. A vigil was also held to remember our friends. Life wasn't fair, I thought. Tim offered to drive me home after the service. We pulled up to the front of the house. I thanked him and was unbuckling my seatbelt and about to open the door and step out of the car when he told me to stay and that he had something for me in the trunk. As he was out grabbing whatever it was, the glove compartment flicked open. I was going to close it when I found a white piece of paper with a list of all our names on it. It had Lucas, Olivia, Harper, and Daniel. Then it was crossed off with what looked like blood. My name was right at the end, but it had a heart around it. Tim came back with a bouquet of roses. "These are for you," he said. Then he spotted the paper I was holding. "What is this?" I said. His smile turned into anger. "All right, I did it," he said. "Was this all a fun game to you, to take the lives of 4 people who were your friends?" "Jill, look. I didn't kill you. I actually have feelings for you. You know, I love you." He leaned in and tried to kiss me. I slapped him in the face. "Don't come closer." "You were crying so much," I said. "Yep, they were fake tears. I guess some were real after I cooled down from my hot temper and figured out what I did. So partially I faked it." He then laughed. "You are sick," I replied in utter disgust. "Stay the hell away from me." I got out of the car. Tim clenched his teeth while yelling out, "Now that you know, I'm gonna have to take care of you too. Don't be alone and make sure to sleep with one eye open." "You're a sociopath," I yelled back. I opened the door of my house and closed it hard behind me and then locked it. I thought Tim was one of the most kindest guys out there. He was always trying to help everyone. Now, he was a heartless murderer? It just didn't make sense. My mom walked into the dining room as I sat down with my head crying. I held her close and told her the truth that I uncovered. We contacted the police, gave a statement, and Tim was taken into custody. A few months passed and we went on trial. It was so long since I had last seen him. Tim looked scrawny, had a bit of a stubble going on his face. His hair needed a lot of trimming. He looked like a real criminal. I went on the stand and spoke about my friends. It just doesn't get easier. I told the courtroom about the evidence I had found in Tim's car. I was then cross-examined with the pocket knife which was belonging to me was found near Olivia. But that night, I had some witnesses who were in the other beach houses spotted me outside with Daniel. My alibi was clear. Then the moment we had all waited for, Tim's statement on why he did it. "A few years ago, my best friend Paul and I went skating on a frozen lake," he said. "We were having a great time. I guess the thickness of the ice wasn't there and Paul fell through. I was a bit further away, so I skated to where he was and grabbed his hand, but Paul didn't know how to swim. The current was pretty strong, and because of that, he went under the sheet of ice. I tried to pound through the ice, but I couldn't. I lost him. I take all the blame because it was my idea to go skating." 7 months went by, and there wasn't a day I didn't think of Paul. Anywhere I'd go, I'd remember him. No special holidays were ever the same. Then one day, at a parent-teachers conference, I saw Olivia, Harper, Daniel, and Lucas's mother conversing in the hallway. They didn't see me, but some of the things they said hurt. They were talking about me and how my parents should do better with helping me get over Paul's death, that he was gone and I should move on. Well, I took it on myself to move on. I befriended their kids. I did have a lot of anger and resentment inside of me because of their remarks. So I took it on myself to take their loved ones away from them. Tim broke into a smirk. He then looked directly at our deceased friend's parents. "So," he said, "let's see how fast you all get over it and move on. I'm sure it's too soon now, but let me know in 7 months. That pain you're feeling right now may or may not dissipate by then. It's the same expectation you had for me." The courtroom audience gasped. Tim went through all of that to teach the adults a lesson. Although I disapproved of Tim's actions, the fact that people felt he should put his trauma to rest was not right either. He's guilty and now has to pay the price of jail time. Even though he took the lives away, he took my friends away, he was responsible for their deaths. I somewhat, deep down inside my heart, forgive him. Hey Scary Story fans! I'm Suzanna Dutt, and thanks for listening to these short tales written and narrated by me. I hope you enjoyed them. If you have a creepy story that's fiction or non-fiction and would like me to share it in the next featured video, feel free to email it to the address in the description below. In the meantime, sweet dreams.